Hello and thanks for joining us on Enterprise Morning on Enterprise TV. I am Cyril Abaku. As is our tradition on the show, we would like to go straight into what the newspaper headlines are saying this morning, Tuesday the 20th of February 2024. Let's begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper says in its banner headline, it says, Labour mobilizes for protests. Tanker drivers strike triggers fuel queues. I'll take that again. Labour mobilizes for protest. Tanker drivers strike triggers fuel queues. I believe by now you would have seen the queues in different parts of town. There's a shortage of petrol already, and now tanker drivers, and I think the owners have suspended product loading, and that's quite a thing to ponder about. The writer for the story says, LG meets drivers, filling stations shut in Abuja, Kano, Ogun. Ipman urges dialogue. NLC adamant, workers vow to join demonstration as Oyo protesters lament hunger. Above that, above the masthead, we have this one that says, EFCC detains ex-Kwara governor Ahmed over alleged 10 billion naira fraud. Another story says, Aso Villa, Defense Headquarters, CBN, face disconnection over 47 billion naira debt. And another one says, Senate asks FIRS to suspend 17 trillion naira tax waivers. And below, at the foot of the page, we have three other stories. One says, 50 Niger Republic bound food trucks intercepted in Zamfara. Lion kills OU veterinary worker during feeding. And then cement manufacturers lease conditions to crash spiraling price. I have with me in the studio to look at these stories, Barrister Jide Ologun, commentator on national issues and public affairs analyst. Barrister, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Okay, Barrister, well, I've just taken the stories now, and none of them is mild or light in my estimation. But let's begin with the human angle story, perhaps. A lion killing a zookeeper in Ile-Ife. This was something that nobody would have seen coming.
Very pathetic, and I express my condolence to the family and the management of OAU, and of course to Nigerians, and something must have gone wrong there. And I saw the attempt by some stakeholders also to take out the lion. I understand it's a 9-year-old lion, but a lion is a lion, and it goes to show us that sometimes it's not about familiarity, it's about the nature of the animal. And I hope that this will trigger reinforcing the preventive measures so that this is not repeated. It's really, really a sad one, you know. And I must also commend the response of the university to that crisis.
Barrister, let's now go to the banner headline. It says, Labour mobilizes for protests. Tanker driver strike triggers fuel queues. You look at the headlines these days, and there's nothing really cheering. Labour is gearing up for its own protests, and tanker drivers have already started theirs. Where are we going from here? I mean, I hope we wake up one day to hear that the presidency is, I mean, they are facing a blackout already.
You know, someone said that you may choose your actions, but definitely not the consequences of your actions. And I think that is where the Nigerian situation is right now. And for me, it's a time for reflection, to probably come up with a fresh vision for the future of this country, because the resources are still there, and there are still remedial measures we can take. In the case of NLC is talking about the welfare of the workers, and that all they negotiated with the government in response to the hardship prompted by the removal of fuel subsidy have not been honored, which also is a government tradition, you know, hitherto. And that with the present state of the economy, the minimum negotiable wage is 1 million naira, though they are trying to shift. And a committee has been set up to review the minimum wage from the status quo of 30,000 naira even though some states started paying 40,000.
And the committee will spend 1 billion to discuss how to change minimum wage.
Yeah, it is the right thing to do. There should be a review from time to time.
The committee,
yeah,
review minimum wage.
And they are also asking for big money.
He spent 1 billion to discuss.
I was coming to that. You see, so I think we have not adopted the business mindset to resource management in Nigeria. So we just engage our resources flamboyantly. And that is why we are where we are right now. So, and when you speak about the fuel loaders that are threatening to down tools, we have read how an international institution has told the world that subsidy has been restored through the back door because the cost of acquiring the products before even coming to sell to consumers has gone up. And that also can be explained. As at yesterday, I think $1 was over 1,500 naira. You see, so, and we have not started refining our crude oil. So we have not corrected an error of the past that has plagued us for years. So we still import these products. And when some of us were mentioning that the impact of Dangote refinery may not be extensive, now we are seeing that we cannot even supply Dangote the crude he needs. He had to approach the United States of America. So we still have this seemingly unserious governance structure in our country. And it can only lead to crisis.
Now, speaking of crisis, what is your response to the story that says that Aso Rock defense headquarters, right, and the CBN, 3 key national institutions, are about to be shut off from power supply because of debt?
I'm not surprised. It's also traditional. You know, we have not been able to establish a governance system that is accountable, that reflects integrity. So, and the rule of law says everyone should be subject to laws and regulations of the society, whether it's individual, corporate bodies, or institutions. So you can see. And that is why the citizens are the victims here. While some discos are complaining that some government institutions are owing, citizens have been made to pay billions of naira in estimated billings. You know, so we have, it's a huge anomaly in our nation. And again, let me state that this can only lead to crisis. You know, in public relations, there is what we call crisis management. You can be proactive or reactive. So, and ours is mostly reactive. Yes. Exactly.
Now, speaking of crisis management, that takes us to our next paper for the morning, which is the Vanguard newspaper. It leads with a bold banner headline story. It says, Forex Crisis, 2024 budget suffers major dislocations. The first of three riders says, benchmark exchange rate now half the value. And this is just, they've never gotten to the middle of the road, they just took off. Revenue, expenditure estimates unrealistic. Analysts see profligacy pushing up deficit to 20 trillion naira. That's a whooping sum. And what will drive it is profligacy. What do you have to say about that, sir?
In law, we say prima facie. On the face value, it speaks for itself. And I dropped it in the capsule of my expression earlier.
You did.
That you may choose, you will have a choice over your actions, but definitely not the consequences. And we have been unable to tame the foreign exchange for several reasons that we may not have the time to discuss. In fact, the fact that we had multi-windows in that sector of our national life was a huge error and waiting for a time to torment the nation. You know, so, and that is why we should be careful the things we allow. It's just like now that NAFDAC is struggling to ban hot drinks in sachet. When this thing started, it
Yeah.
was just like when
Yes.
Lagos State woke up and said
Start having
Okada
as-
is banned or something. No! You know, when you want to tame a tree, you tame it when it is growing,
Yes.
not when it has grown up. So right now, in the foreign exchange environment, there's a huge battle going on. Those who have hoarded it, how to frustrate the government. And again, we are not productive. We are not earning the currency. So where do we go from here than to face frustration? That's why that budget is really, really endangered.
Oh, I like the word you used. It's facing a line of its own.
Yes.
The other story, our last story on Vanguard says, Edo 2024, APC youths, women take over secretariat, one sack of state working committee. The riders say, I won APC primaries with over 6,000 votes. That's Okpebolo. Dekeri storms Ganduje's office, demands certificate of return. The last one says, as Imuse congratulates Idahosa. Now, a political party cannot organize simple party primaries. You wonder how many there are in the state. And there are 3 major candidates coming out to say, we won. What is that? Aren't you appalled?
You know, I'm not surprised, because clearly, following the amendment of the Electoral Act, these pre-election matters are purely parties' affairs. So other parties cannot even intervene. And the courts are waiting. But what some will say is that it's the judiciary that is deciding. But already the faulty foundation is being laid. But Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended stipulates that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of Nigeria. So it shouldn't be out of place, for instance, if we come up with a new law that says in situations like this, any of the politicians found to have erred in creating crises like this can be jailed for 17 years.
I agree with that.
They will begin to have sanity in that
Because
environment.
in the party primaries, INEC has a statutory obligation to participate, to observe. But I mean, how is it that 3 different people are claiming victory? Something is fundamentally wrong. And if parties cannot organize themselves on internal level, how do we now entrust an entire state, local government area, or even a country to them? And it's the ruling party.
It doesn't matter whether it's a ruling party or not, but where there are no consequences, anything goes. You notice that during the last judicial intervention dispensations, some legal practitioners were slammed with huge penalties, 40 million, this one, so that you don't just come with frivolous matters. And I'm pushing it back now to the National Assembly. Make concrete laws.
Yes.
Look at the amendments of the Electoral Act that stipulated that if you are a political appointee and you want to actively participate in the primaries in your party, then you resign. It worked. Some ministers stepped aside, even though they never claimed. So laws are made for the people. So we can amend our laws to sanitize our processes. But when politicians realize that they can disrupt the system and nothing happens, they will, definitely.
Great. So to our last paper for the morning, which is The Nation newspaper, the banner headline here says, diversion of 10 billion naira. EFCC detains ex-Kwara governor. The writer says, Ahmed's trial slated for Ilorin. He is ready to take questions on his stewardship. That's from his source. The other story above the title of the paper says, this co-threatens power court to Aso Villa orders over 47 billion naira. We took that earlier. Oya disbursed 500 million naira to 2,000 plus small business owners. The other story says, ASU members get 4 months without salaries. Edo, don't campaign before April 24. INEC warns. Although we don't know who INEC is talking to in the APC, it remains to be seen. Okay, but well, the last one on the paper says, no time to scrap LCDAs, says Aida Tiwa. Then the other one says, lion kills zookeeper at OU. Let's come to the story on diversion of 10 billion naira. EFC detains ex-Kwara governor. it's almost become a norm now that once a governor is out of office, the EFCC, takes him in, he's a customer, 10 billion, 15 billion, 20 billion. As we speak, the last time a governor was, the visit of the EFCC was Governor Willoughby some weeks ago. Was it for how much billion naira now? And now there's Governor Ahmed. Oh, what's the thing about the governorship seats that always lands them in sort of trouble after they leave office?
Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigeria Constitution, excuse me, 1999 as amended, says that the state shall abolish corrupt practices and abuse of power. And that law is there. And having said that, as a governor, as a president, you enjoy immunity. So that is why it appears. But that immunity does not prevent investigation. And the findings of the investigation can be warehoused till the governor is out of office for invitation. You recall the case of former governor of Ekiti State, Fayose. He even printed a T-shirt.
EFCC.
Yeah, he went to EFCC.
I'm ready for you.
So, but the big question now is, to how far do we ensure those found culpable are brought to justice? Because in the criminal justice ecosystem, you have three vital pillars: thorough investigation, diligent prosecution, and a committed judiciary. And we can borrow a very vibrant and evergreen leaf from the UK. You saw the case of former governor of Delta State,
yes,
who was jailed for 13 years in the UK for specific crimes. It was not about the sentiments or his performance in office. You see, you can see the case of Ekweremadu. So it's up to us. And EFCC has a mandate to ensure that financial crime is prevented,
yes,
and prosecuted if necessary. But let's see. And the big question is that even some governors that were convicted, even confirmed by Supreme Court, because I was in the Supreme Court in the case of Dariye then, when Supreme Court confirmed, they eventually enjoy state pardon. So how serious we are about fighting corruption is a question I cannot answer. But if we don't fight corruption, corruption will frustrate the system. So again, back to what I said earlier, that you may have a choice over your actions, but definitely not on the consequences. So let's see how, and of course, we expect that the governor, if prosecuted after investigation, will plead not guilty. And let's see whether there will be diligent prosecution or not. And when the high and mighty realize that they can dance around the law, they were in serious trouble. Because I read a comment somewhere that the number of people stealing our resources are not as much as those waiting to go in there and steal our resources.
That's
So,
speaking to a doomed environment.
And that is a wrong modeling. Accountability is a principal requirement under the principle of good governance, because the resources are held on trust for the citizens. But I'm not castigating the former governor, because under our constitution also, we have the doctrine of presumption of innocence,
yes,
which says that somebody who has been alleged of a criminal offense is presumed innocent until that case is proved beyond all reasonable doubts. So you need your investigation to come up with concrete witnesses and evidence and everything. You need a diligent prosecution. And again, there was a promise towards 2015 election that the burden of proof will shift from the prosecutor to the defendant, but that has not been implemented. And we are talking about a committed judiciary. So, and those are the elements, and that's why it may be difficult sometimes to get to the bottom of some of these cases with smiles on the faces of citizens, because the prosecutor may decide not to be diligent. And if the prosecutor is not diligent, what will judiciary do?
That's like a food for thought. If the prosecution is not diligent, what can the judiciary do? Well, this may be something we leave for all of us, the viewer, those of us in the studio, everybody everywhere, Nigerians all over the world, to ponder over as we continue to seek answers, that will address our own national question back at home here. But Barrister, I must thank you for making it a day to us on this segment of the program.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. And of course, I would like to oblige that you stay back for the next segment. when we do come back, we'll tell about protesters who have hit. Yes, thank you, sir. When we return, we will tell about protests that have hit Ibadan after initially springing up in Kano and Niger states. Stay with us.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.